It's that long ornamental grass. It's so pretty, but does it work in your yard? We are used to seeing it around businesses. Can we bring it to our home? We brought Cynthia Bee here with the Conservation Garden Park to ask that question. What do you think, Cynthia? Can it work in a yard?
Oh, absolutely. There is so many wonderful ornamental grasses, and there's a reason that they're using those on those commercial properties, and that's because they're very low maintenance. So once you have them, if you plant the right stuff, it's not a lot of work to keep it going.
Okay, so that's good to hear, because I think low maintenance is what we're looking for, especially when you need some space to fill. You've got those spaces where you need fillers, and this is a good way to start these ornamental grasses. Plus, you mentioned this is something that's kind of an echo of Utah's natural landscape.
Right, you know, I really feel like landscapes should be honest to the climate that they're in. You know, it's okay to like kind of an English look, but then Utah, you like localize it a little bit with some native grasses and things that really give it an extra punch and texture and color. And more importantly, the grasses bring movement and sound to the landscape that's really interesting.
That's always been something that I've been attracted to, is just that sway of a grass in the wind. So beautiful. I love that. So you brought a few on the show today. Tell me about your favorites. What do you love here?
Well, I wanted to show, so this first batch here, just to show some of the difference in the colors and the textures of these grasses. This guy right here is actually going to get 5 or 6 feet tall, and you can see the beautiful little gold tipping.
Wow, really? 5 or 6 feet, like as tall as us. That's nuts.
And this one looks like, this one here, the sedge here, looks like it's always fall. And that it's kind of strange to think about putting something kind of orangey brown in the landscape, but it really gives a lot of pop and texture and interest, and really shows off all the other plants around it too.
You know, that's a good point. And sometimes you do want something that's a little different just to add, and it does. It looks a lot more strawy, whereas this looks like a true grass, kind of wild true grass. So would this does this reach its full potential in Utah? What kind of?
Oh, absolutely. Utah is an ideal climate for these grasses. Now, the key when you're buying an ornamental grass is you want to make sure it's clump forming. Almost all of the grasses you'll find in the nursery are clump forming. We don't want it to spread like lawn grass, because then that's a nightmare. So in your planting beds, we want it to stay in a nice contained mass.
Okay, so actually look for the words clump forming. It should have that on there, or somebody at the nursery.
Or ask your nursery. Yep.
Okay, tell me about these.
So these are just showing some of the different colors and textures, but all of these grasses do well in shade. The one in front is black mondo grass.
Wow, that is
and it
so
is actually
pretty.
black. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it looks like little eels, sea eels or something. It's beautiful.
And some of the grasses, like, you know, are really strong and upright, and then this one here is called a Japanese forest grass, and it's going to flow over like a wave out the edge of your flower bed. It looks amazing.
Yes,
especially
I'm just
under
picturing
like
that,
weeping
like
trees.
in a garden, maybe over some brick, like falling over it.
And then this one here is a carex, which works as a sedge, and it works really well in shade. So whether you have full sun or shade, there's a grass that works for you. And the bright color of these types, where you've got that white and green or the yellow and green, will make your shade areas really glow. Where
Good
it kind
point.
of feels
so it's
dark.
a little bit darker anyway. I'm adding some of this texture in. I mean, the black's going to be just a nice, but putting these next to each other, I am loving this. So would you group them this way?
Oh, absolutely.
Would you do a couple grasses in a spot?
You can see how that yellow pops against the black.
Oh, I love it.
And the black would kind of visually disappear in the shade because it's dark, except for the fact that you've got that yellow foliage making it brighten up. So it's that play of textures that grasses bring to our perennial beds that really makes them interesting and unique.
So you don't have to think of using just one grass in an area. You can really do a couple of those integrated with flowers or whatever else you have going
just
on.
mix them on in with everything else. There are short grasses that work really well at the front of the border. Some of them are dome shaped. There's other grasses like Ravenna grass that will grow 12 feet tall once all the plumes come on.
Oh, wow.
And then the beautiful plumes that they get, here's an example of some of the plumes. So you see this one's got more of the blue foliage going on, and this kind of interesting straw-like plume, kind of, you know, totally different. And then this one here, next to it has the pink. You can see how the different plumes are, but on a day where there's more sunshine, the sun will actually filter through these plumes and backlight them. So not only are you adding movement and sway to the garden, you're also helping it capture the light, especially the end of day or morning when you're most likely to be out there anyway.
This is so fun to hear you come on and talk about this, because I think these are things I don't always think of, but you appreciate when you walk somewhere and it just pops.
Oh yeah.
It's those elements.
And the maintenance on them
at.
is really simple. Once a year, I let them stand over the winter because I want wildlife to be able to eat the seeds, partly so that they don't grow in my garden, and partly because they need food.
All right.
And then in about late February, early March, you just come in, you cut them down to 6 inches, and you're done with your work for the year.
Okay, that sounds like something I can handle. What about water consumption with most of these?
Most of these grasses are pretty low water. Some of the shadier ones will take a little bit more, but you can find native grasses all the way up to, you know, just moderate water. But for the most part, an ornamental grass is pretty water-wise.
Oh, and that's kind of awesome, especially for our landscape. What about these bigger ones down in the front?
Well, that's just showing you some of the different textures. So you've got broad leaves, narrow leaves, you've got big seed plumes and small ones and different colors and shapes. So really they just bring kind of an element that we often forget in contrast with the leaves of our perennials and our shrubs.
Okay, so how do you like these? I mean, if we're talking about setting up an entire garden or somebody wants to add these into them, where do you see them being placed? Typically at the back, where do you like them?
So it just depends on the height of the grass. I always like to do like a little clump like on corners and things. I think they're a nice little, because they kind of, if you're gonna cut around that corner, they're a little more durable than some of the other plants. So I'll use like a little bunny or something at a corner, or at the end, you know, at where the house turns the corner, maybe as a center point in that area. I mean, there's something
just kind
to
of
do
an
for everything.
anchoring something in your yard that stands out.
Yep. And if you have a lot of the sameness and you want to break that up with some texture, then that's a great thing for grasses.
Okay, what about the time, season to plant them? Can we still do it now?
Oh, absolutely. You can get grasses in till probably through, you know, late June, and then again in the fall. Grasses really peak in the fall too. They look amazing.
Wow, so they really are kind of an all-year thing that we can do in Utah. Beautiful. Anywhere, any other suggestions you have for how people can use these in their yard?
Well, so I like to integrate them. I put them in some places that are really hot. They're really awesome in park strips, and they're not, you know, the lower growing ones are great for park strips. Gosh, I can't think of a bad place for them.
Okay, that's good to hear. All right, so tell me where we can find out more information.
Well, you can always go to conservationgardenpark.org. We do classes for homeowners. You can come see them in the garden. We have dozens of varieties that are growing at full size, so you can see what they'd actually look like in your yard.
Oh, that's such a fun idea. Come check it out in person. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.